Welcome, webheads. It's that time again for the most supersonic, hypersonic, and harmonic cybersecurity webcast on the internet. So welcome to Head in the Clouds. So take it away, Jules and Jay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of Head in the Clouds. My name is Julie Haste, and I'll be your host. In the next 20 minutes, we're going to talk about Cortex by Palo Alto Networks. Jason Weber, our Manager of Solutions Research and Development, is back with us again to share some wisdom on the importance of a good endpoint detection and response solution. We thank you for being here with us today, and we know your time is valuable, so we'll be giving away a $50 Amazon gift card to one of our lucky listeners. And if you attended yesterday's Prisma podcast and want to be entered in the Oculus Quest 2 giveaway, stick around and we'll be doing both drawings at the end of this episode. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat box. So with that, it's time to put Jason back in the hot seat. Hi, Jason. Thank you for being here today.
How you doing, Jules? Good to be here.
I'm doing good. So we're hearing more and more discussions lately around endpoint detection and response, or EDR. Can you tell us how Cortex XDR fits in with that?
So Cortex XDR is going to be the engine for EDR, right? This is going to be one of those endpoint softwares that help to detect a individual attack or vulnerability that's trying to be compromised. But it also does the response and reporting. So Cortex has some other pieces in it like XSOAR. XSOAR is their security orchestration and response engine that's able to help prevent or to further disable access for those attacks to happen.
So how is Cortex different than a lot of other solutions currently being offered in the marketplace?
So when you talk about the Palo Alto Cortex line, it's one of the few complete solutions around EDR, right? We have the actual Cortex application that it runs on your laptops and desktops, and what that's there to kind of protect the endpoint, right? That's managed by a cloud managed always on management engine that has access to Wildfire as well as Data Lake. So now our endpoints, whether they're in the office or they're remote, which most of them are now, right? Or even if they're not on the VPN, are still protected, still able to get their updates, still able to send their logs into Data Lake. They're also still able to connect to Wildfire to submit files for testing, right? So instead of having to be on VPN and connected to your database, your virus database server, right? It's always on, it's always connected to that. Some of the other key differentiators are how it actually protects, right? So the Cortex product is a technique-based protection. So what it does is actually watch for the techniques that the attacks that the spyware and malware are trying to utilize to download more code or to add that system to command and control. So that technique monitoring is much easier and faster than what we would consider our legacy monitoring that's done with signatures, right? And there's 101 reasons why signatures are bad. When we look at attack like what recently happened with the pipeline, right? We have a crypto locker come in or a encryption malware come in. Last time I checked, we had over 500 variants of that software, that attack software. So if you have to have 500 signatures in a database, because if it's even 1 byte off, it's not going to match, then you start to add a lot of overhead to that endpoint. Because we're looking at technique, it doesn't matter how big or small or how the software was written. It's monitoring for that kill chain for what that software is trying to do. So that again adds into why it's a better platform to be on.
All right, so let me hit you kind of with a two-part question now. Now that we understand more about how Cortex works, what kind of organizations would need Cortex? And in what kind of infrastructure or environment does Cortex work best?
All of them, and all of them. Yeah. So everybody needs endpoint protection, right? Obviously, you want to go with a best of breed solution, and Cortex really is that best of breed solution. It has the ability to not only prevent known threats, but also zero-day threats. When we look at the organizations that are especially in need of this platform, any organization that's still running legacy software, or legacy hardware, right? So how many of us have customers that are still running Windows XP as an embedded point of sale service system, right? How many still have Windows 7 out there? These are platforms that are unpatched. They're out of support. They're end of life, right? They're not supposed to still be running, but we have these applications that we're embedded into that require that to run. Those types of organizations definitely would be advantaged by having Cortex. Any environment that's trying to do VDI or virtualization, the overhead for Cortex is less than 0.5% of CPU when it's just running, right? The
That's great.
memory, yeah, the memory utilization that it requires is as small as the application that it's protecting. And it protects most shrink wrap software out of the box with little to no tuning.
So now that we understand Cortex is really a fit for most organizations, can you help our audience understand the buyer profile? So what roles within an organization might be best to talk to about an EDR solution?
The best ones to talk to are going to be the ones that deal with endpoint, that deal with compliance and security, right? Those are kind of your three targets. The workstation team is definitely one of them because they're the ones that have to go and repair those devices if they've been compromised. The security team, because they have to go do the investigations. We kind of talked about the plugins with Data Lake and with Wildfire. When we look at Cortex and what it's able to write in there, Data Lake gives your SOC a whole new area to go and look at these threats. And if you don't have a SOC, you can take SOC as a service like Critical Start and plug them directly into Data Lake and have that SOC being able to monitor those threats without having to create tons of inroads into your environment. So there are several kind of things that we would want to look at there.
So now that we kind of know who to talk to, what questions should we be asking about their current endpoint security solutions?
If it's more than 2 years old, it's outdated, right? Even if they've got the latest files on it. Cortex has been, they were one of the first to come to market with technique-based protection. They were one of the first ones to also tie in their cloud-based sandboxing with Wildfire, one of the coolest plugins, right? Because that gives us not only the ability to protect that Wildfire, machine learning intelligence is what powers the local analysis engine now on the endpoint.
Right.
So you have this synergy between Wildfire and Cortex. When we submit files to Wildfire, we have signatures or hashes. I shouldn't call them signatures. They're actually, it's just a hash of the file, so that we can just save ourselves the cycles. We know that's a bad file, pitch it. But we're also feeding all of the firewalls around the world too. So those Wildfire signature, like hash signatures, those get updated on the firewalls as well. So we can even prevent it from even getting to the endpoint. If they're using decryption, we're now able to inspect that traffic. That file, that spyware is not even going to make it to the endpoint because we're going to know what it is because now we've seen it. So that's kind of where the big benefit is.
Great, that's really interesting. Can you give our listeners an idea of how long it takes to typically deploy Cortex? And perhaps could you just talk a little bit about what that process is like?
literally could have been done in the time we did this podcast. Just like
Wow.
Prisma, it's pretty straightforward, right?
That's
Cortex
better
is
than that.
actually, yeah, Cortex is actually a little bit faster. The management system is all at apps.paloaltonetworks.com. And literally to deploy Cortex, you're going to get your auth code, go out there to apps.paloaltonetworks.com, click in the top left corner, authorization code, paste it in, and it's going to go ahead and ask you a series of 5 to 10 questions. Name your instance and things like that. Choose your data lake. If you don't have a data lake, it'll say name your data lake so we can deploy it, and it's done. At that point, it's just fine tuning. And when we look at fine tuning, again, out of the box, just default policies for 90% of the organizations are going to be great. They're going to do the job, right? Now, those 10%, they're going to have those in-house written homegrown applications. And yes, you may have some tuning that needs to be done for those. And the deployment into production is actually really straightforward too. Cortex is not going to fight with another endpoint product, right? So we can start to work through our deployment in phases. And we at Cloud Harmonics with the PS team have 3 phases. Phase 1 is 1 to 2 users in each department, and 10 to 15% of your IT staff, right? And have them go ahead and run through and do as much testing as possible. Over 2 weeks, we have the customer stay in touch with us, and if they run into any issues, they have a direct line to the ASC to open a case and immediately get that resolved, so that they're not down, they don't have to roll back or worry about anything, right? And we're doing this kind of phased. After 2 weeks, we've pretty much worked through the issues that you're going to run into, but we do have a second phase where we say, okay, now we're going to do 10% of each department, right? We do 10% of those departments, and we kind of take those users, again, monitor them for about 2 weeks and go through that same process. Maybe we find 1 or 2 more things. Again, ASC helps take care of those. And then phase 3, we roll it out to the rest of the staff. And once it's rolled out to everybody, then we remove the old endpoint, right? We can let it kind of work in harmony with that endpoint. It's not going to fight or break applications to be the person that protects the device. It's there to kind of monitor and protect what the other softwares would miss.
Very interesting. So we're just about up to time here. So if anyone would like to see a demo of how Cortex works, who should they contact?
Of course, your account executives at Cloud Harmonics are able to facilitate demos, SEs for calls. If you don't have an account rep at Cloud Harmonics, just email headintheclouds@cloudharmonics.com. And that goes to Jules and myself and a couple of the other sales leads, and we'll get an account executive assigned to you ASAP.
Well, this has been really informative. Thank you, Jason. If you would like more information on the Cortex product offerings, stop by the Palo Alto Networks vendor booth. So, Steve, do we have any questions for Jason?
Doesn't look like it, Jules. I think Jason did such a great job explaining everything that everybody's crystal clear.
Well, if anyone should think of any other questions after this episode ends, please feel free to reach out, like Jason said, to your Cloud Harmonics account manager, or you can email headintheclouds@cloudharmonics.com. So now, without further ado, let's give away that $50 Amazon gift card. So is everybody ready? What I want you to do is go to the chat box, and this time I want you to type in a number with any letter after it from 1 to 1,000. So for example, 240J. This will also enter you in the Oculus Quest 2 drawing if you attended our Prisma podcast yesterday.
And guys, if you wouldn't mind, put your first and last name in there as well. We did have a couple of Jasons yesterday, and we want to make sure we get it to the right person.
Yes, good point. So we'll announce the winner for the $50 Amazon gift card in just a moment. And the winner for the Oculus Quest 2 will be announced in our closing ceremonies today at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. However, you do not need to be present to win. Also, I just want to remind everybody, if you haven't had a chance already, stop by our charity booth so you can donate your $20 token to one of our 3 charities that we're supporting: AmeriCares, Feeding America, and the Salvation Army. Also, I strongly encourage you to just take a couple minutes out of your busy day, go have some fun in the arcade. We've got Super Mario Brothers, Tetris, and my personal favorite, Duck Hunt. All right, so let's see. Steve, who is our lucky winner?
Let's give them all just one more minute here.
Looks like a couple people are typing in still.
All right. Hope everybody is enjoying the expo. We've got a great comedian lined up for the end today. So if you can, try and stick around for that. I'm sure we could all use a good laugh today.
30 more seconds, everyone. Come on, put it in chat.
All right, guys, let's see who the lucky winner is going to be. How's it looking, Steve?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It looks like our winner is John Valera.
All right. Congratulations, John. And like I said, we will announce the winner for the Oculus Quest 2 in our closing ceremony. So that's a wrap for today, guys. Thanks all for listening in. And until next time,
keep your feet on the ground and your head in the clouds.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.